So it's Code Untapped here again for another podcast. It's been a while. You've got me, Ez, and Jay. Say hello, Jay.
Hey guys.
So it's been a bit. It's been a minute. I mean, today we're going to be talking about how do you find tech co-founders, right? And I know this is something that's close to both of our hearts, both from the investment perspective as well as being startups ourselves. But Jay, talk a little bit about what you've been up to, because I know everyone's going to be wondering. I get asked this all the time. You know, where's the latest podcast? What's going on? So, what have we been up to? Well, all right, let's be honest. What have you been up to the last few weeks, Jay?
I've been trying to hide from the world, really. So I've really been focused on our startup that we've got together, some group, in particular, getting it ready for beta. So currently we've transitioned from being in active development to being in alpha. So we've moved into alpha now, and we're starting to come out of that phase, and we're starting to do things like our pen testing, security testing, in readiness to migrate into beta. So it's been a real, it's been really full on period.
It's been a grind, right?
It's been a grind,
difficult one.
It's been a grind. Yeah, it's like you put it out to your internal test team, and they, you think, right, I'm ready. We've killed, we must have killed all the
sorry, my cat's just decided to turn up and say hello. Say hello, Isla. Yep, there she is.
Isla. She doesn't like me though, Ez.
She doesn't like anyone who's not in the household. So anyway, we'll try to ignore her while she says
yeah.
Sorry, you were saying.
No. So I was just saying, So it's like you do a build, and you think this build, you think this is the one that you're going to get sign off. Your testers, they're going to say, look, right, we're ready to go. We've got rid of those those critical. We've got rid of those blocker bugs, and then there's always one more to just keep you going. It's interesting because we can talk about this. It's like the very first time we gave the product to our internal test team, and we thought, right, we're in a good place, we've done a lot of work, and he turned around and said, this is unusable. What is this? What is this?
And then you had me on the other side going, Jay, get it out.
Why have we not
launched it? Get it out.
It was ready in August. What have you been doing since then? It was like, and no, it's funny. And so we gave it to them, and they said, "Oh, it's not usable. It's unusable." And you know the story. I'm not really going to go into the details of it, but But the particular use case that we designed for wasn't really one that it didn't cover the real cases, it was interesting. We just didn't think of it. There was a particular use case and we just didn't think of it. It was just, we were so into, we had our heads down, and we were so close to what we were building that actually nobody had actually had a sort of a sky view of that whole, of a particular helicopter view of a particular flow that we were trying to resolve. And it was interesting. We gave it to our internal test team, and immediately it goes, well, what about this particular thing? And we want to do this particular thing a lot. And you need to cater for that. And I thought to myself, could I move this to V2? Should I phone Ez and say, oh, what's this gonna? And it was, and I was really trying to look for reasons not to do this thing. And I run it by, a few people. And
you never ran it by me though, did you? I didn't hear about it until afterwards.
That was funny, until I fixed it. Till I
was like, what's going on?
It was really, what was really interesting is that when the realization hit me that, look, you're just going to have to bite the bullet and fix this bloody thing, right? We just got down to it, and it was, I think, because of the nature of the team that I've got around us. And the team itself is multidisciplinary team, but the team itself, we have real cognitive diversity in the fact that we all look at a problem from a different perspective, and we were able to quickly identify all of the touch points that we needed to change. So that's all of the functional touch points we needed to change. And then that translated to the places in the code base that we needed to change and we needed to test. And we literally, within 2 weeks, we pretty much rebuilt a major part of the platform, to cater for this particular use case. So it was real rapid iteration. And actually, there was more work that needed to be done, but because we'd got over I think it was the emotional hurdle of having to make such a big change. We got over that hurdle quite quickly, and then it was just execution. Yeah.
Can I touch on 3 really important points there? One, the importance of being able to make quick decisions and not to procrastinate. That's the type of thing. Honestly, I speak to so many founders in my role as Impact X, right? I speak to so many founders, and the number of times you find out they've been procrastinating about a decision for weeks or months, and then only when they found they really absolutely had to do it, they're now months behind schedule. You guys just made the decision.
Yeah, we didn't do that. It was like we had a meeting on Wednesday. I was told by the team, like, Jay, this needs to be done.
Just did it.
And then like by the next day, we were literally specking out the change across the board. This is front end, back end, and by I think a week and a half later, the guys were testing the new flow. They were testing it.
But the second point was that change, that need for that change came about because of real user testing, right?
Oh, definitely.
And you can have all the design work you want, you can have all the intelligence around the problem that you like, until you get it into the hands of real users. And it was one of the first things they said, right?
Yeah, it was.
And I know how much thinking has gone into this application and this design, but it was one of the first, as soon as they tried to use it for real, it was like, but why doesn't it do this?
And it was like, what? I didn't know you. What? Oh, damn. Yeah.
See, so that cognitive blind spot that we have as product owners just shows how important. This is why I say this to startups. Your most important thing is to get it into the hands of customers, end users, as quickly and as cheaply as possible, so that you can then react to that change. And that's the final point, right? And we talked about this the other night. As a startup, your real strength compared to, and your superpower compared to larger incumbents, is your ability to react to change and to do it quickly. Right? And you went from that discovering a problem, making a decision, to a major rewrite and rolling out that new feature in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, definitely.
That is incredible. And that, that is, as much as, no one wants to be in that position, you accepted it, you dealt with it, and you moved forward. And you did that super quickly. So that's massive. That's huge.
It's interesting. And we had, it really was an emotional thing, because you've put a lot of energy to get it to that point, and you really want to go into beta. But it's important that you don't jump too soon and you get that initial alpha testing, because if we'd have put it into beta, with that sort of missing element, and then we were told by our beta users that, you just need to do this. You said, what we would have had to handle now is we would have had to handle, ensuring that while we're making that transition, which we would have had to do in beta, we would have had to handle their data as well on the platform. And that would have been much more difficult. And we would have had to handle downtime in the app itself, while we were making these changes, and interruptions to our users actually using the platform while we were doing this change. And so it's almost, you bite the bullet now, to save pain later. And I knew that if I knew I carried this, we have a term in the software space, we call it technical debt. But this was, for me, this was not just technical debt, it was functional debt. It was stuff that the users would say, right, this is not right, you need to do something about it. And because of the nature of the change, it would have been that we'd had to make changes in lots of places when people were on the platform, really using the platform. And that would have been a much more painful experience. And it wouldn't have taken 2 weeks in that stage. It probably would have taken maybe 2 months.
Exactly. So look, I mean, this is a whole subject in itself, and we should absolutely do a podcast on that. But I know we're here to talk about finding co-founders today. And you and I are co-founders, well, technically
We
co-founders
are.
on
Yeah.
some group. We're co-founders on Code Untapped as well. You know, you're not alone in your project at the moment with your team. Um, what's it meant to you having a co-founder alongside you? And bear in mind, I'm not operational in this because
Mm,
obviously I do my work with ImpactX, so I'm more of a almost business advisor role
mm.
as a co-founder alongside this. But what's it meant to you having a co-founder, and why has it been important?
Well, for me, it's security, yeah, and it's a sounding post as well, a sounding board, yeah,
Mm,
and you definitely need that because you go through phases in that journey where you really doubt yourself, yeah, and you really doubt that what you're trying to deliver is really going to deliver the value that you envisaged. Because
yeah.
you're a founder, you have a vision, and you have a vision and you have a purpose. You say, right, actually, this purpose, this vision, it will make a difference to my users. It will enable them to, and they will have a better outcome, and they will be, and
But that's actually, it's interesting you mentioned that because that's at the core of what a job to be done is, right?
for
It's
sure,
helping a person move to be a better form of themselves, right?
yeah.
You give them a product that moves them from one state to another, and that's actually at the core of what you're talking about right there.
Definitely, definitely. And I mean, I always talk about, in particular, when you're talking about trying to be an entrepreneur or trying to be a founder, I talk about the three P's. And I know I've talked to
Mm.
you as about the three P's, which is uh, purpose, passion, and then planning and execution. Yeah.
So 3PE.
P. I didn't want to. I didn't want to mention P. I didn't want to say P. I didn't want to say P. So I was like, oh, there's a fudge that E in there. Yeah.
That's the job of the co-founder. To be honest, right? That's
look
right
at the
there. That's what
detail.
I'm
Look
doing.
at the 5 points.
Exactly.
But yeah, and you need to have the purpose is the thing that when you have those difficult times, yeah, that's going to keep you on track. And when you have detractors and when you have opportunities, sometimes and as a founder, you'll have opportunities maybe to pivot your product as well. And the purpose is effectively your filter. Yeah. So your purpose is right. I'm doing this for this reason. Yeah.
Right.
And if you have opportunities to pivot and those opportunities might sound exciting, but if they're not in line with your purpose, it may not be the thing that's right for you to do at that point in time. So your purpose is your guiding light. And then that's where your passion springs from as well, because it's the passion, again, that's going to get you up every morning, trying to solve these problems and get to the place that you need to be. Yeah. And then, but none of this can happen without the planning and execution. And that planning and execution is, what do I need to do today to move the needle? Yeah. What do I need to do today to move the needle? And how can I get to that next step? Yeah. And it's ensuring that, and that planning comes beforehand as well, because we talked about this. It goes back, it can also go back to, like we talked about, obviously, in our last podcast, we talked about, the 0.2% in terms of funding. So when I started this venture, I did a lot of planning. So and I did a lot of financial planning. So I put aside cash. I sat down with my family and said, look, this is what I'm on a journey, and this is going to be the state for the next 9 to 12 months, and this is what we're going to have to do to get us to where we need to be in this project. And so that is the planning, and then the execution is effectively ensuring that you live up to that plan, and you live through that plan daily, and it has to be daily, and you have to check yourself daily and say to yourself, right, what is the most important thing that I need to do today? And you need to just get that thing done. And it's simple as that.
No, absolutely. So I mean, it'd be great to talk a little bit about how we became co-founders, but firstly, you talk a lot about the importance of it, but what most people question is, well, what do you look for in a co-founder? Now, we've known each other for a long time, but we didn't have to be co-founders.
No.
Right. So in your mind, what do you look for in terms of character, when you're looking for a co-founder?
It's interesting, because I think it's a bit of a self-explanatory. You really have to understand yourself as an individual. And so somebody, for me, what I look for in a co-founder is somebody that complements my skills. Yeah. Yeah. Because I know what I can do, and I don't need another me. Yeah. I need somebody that looks at things from a different perspective. Yeah. That has a different view and has a different, even the way that they operate in terms of their operating mode is different, because then you get that real, you get that diversity, or you get that diversity of solution. Yeah. And that's what you want. Yeah. You want to solve a problem holistically. Yeah. Yeah. And so that problem is a good fit for as a wider range of as possible of individuals who want to. Yeah. And so, and yeah, definitely.
But what one thing, that complementary skill set, let's focus on something there, because we're quite similar in skill sets in some way. We're both technologists, we're both finance technologists, right? But we've both worked in investment banking. So some people on the face of it go, but your skill sets are the same. But actually there's differences in the way that we've applied that, right? Obviously, I've gone on and co-founded the company beforehand. I've been a CTO, but now I'm in the investment space. So I bring a different set of skills, and we have quite different approaches to things. So I just want people to realize that when you're thinking about complementary, it's not as simple as, well, I do finance and you do technology, right? There's deeper aspects to that.
And yeah, that difference is also a difference in personality as well. Yeah, because I think that I can be very touchy-feely, yeah, and you are not really touchy-feely.
I like to think that I'm touchy-feely. Yeah. You know what? This is the thing.
All right, you got the cat there. You got the cat.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there's my cat right there. I'm a warm, fuzzy person.
If we need to crack the whip in something,
no joke, right? I always thought I was a really warm, friendly, caring, but when all of a sudden I just find myself, I'm in the bad cop role in almost everything I do at the moment. I'm the person going, stop doing that, don't do that. Why are you doing it? Well, that's a stupid idea. Well, have you thought about this yet?
And that's the thing, because no, again, and that's good, because I can be sometimes in the cloud edge, you know that, yeah. And I can sometimes, you know, I so want to be in the detail, because I want to make sure that the detail is the correct, yeah. And then you can then say, well, Jay, you can bring me out of that and say, actually, what are we trying to achieve, Jason, here? And does it make sense for you to go down that road to the level that you're going around? So it is that you're 100% right. We complement ourselves in the fact that our personalities are also different, in the sense that you are very task orientated, and that's something I've learned from you, actually, to be that focused on the task. And so, but I'm still very into the detail, and I think so. I know that when we have our catch-ups, I know that what your expectation of me is that you want to see, right, Jason, are we sticking to our milestones? Yeah. Are we making sure that we're on target to?
Because I can't be in the detail, because I'm portfolio level across so many different organizations.
Again, and then that shows again to the complementary skills. Some of the stuff that you do for some group, actually, is some of the stuff that I don't have experience in, yeah, and also I necessarily don't really want to do.
Which is fair enough.
Let's just be honest, and that's good as well. And I've come to this. I've got this saying: get people to do what they want to do. Yeah, to have people on your team doing stuff that they want to do and they enjoy doing. Yeah, and then you'll get the best out of them. Yeah, and so
absolutely.
That's what I look for in also, not just that's what I would look for in a co-founder, but I would also look for that in new joiners as well, or new people that wanting to come on the team. I would look for that, definitely.
But what's interesting about this, because I know we're running short on time now, but big question comes down to, well, how do I find co-founders, and should they be friends? Should they be colleagues? Should they be people I've just found off the street? You know, how do I find a co-founder? And our journey to being co-founders is quite interesting, because we were colleagues at Credit Suisse, not on the same team, but within the same organization. We saw each other and worked together through being colleagues, we became friends,
Mhm.
right? And then you became almost an advisor, mentor of mine as
Mm.
I was building Neighbor, because you
Mm.
had experience in business with your properties, not in building a tech company, but in business with your properties. So you understood cash flow, you understood contracts, you understood agreements. So you
Mm.
gave me a lot of advice right
Mm.
at the beginning. I don't think you even really realize it from that perspective, but you
Mm.
were almost one of my brain trust members, one of my advisors as I was building Neighbor.
Mm.
And then that came full circle after I left
Yeah.
Neighbor. I then started advising you
You
on
did,
what
yeah.
Some Group was going to become. Then off
Mm.
the back of that, I came up with this crazy idea for Code Untapped.
Mm.
And we were talking about that. And I was like, Jay, given what you're doing, what I'm doing, why aren't we work? We should work together on this.
Yeah.
And then that grew to then me becoming a co-founder, albeit in a non-operational manner on
Mm.
Some Group, and you becoming my co-founder on Code Untapped. Now,
Mm.
what's interesting is there's another question, which is, should we be equal to each other? Now, we're equal in terms of our opinions, but
Mm.
I'm a majority shareholder in Code Untapped, and you're a majority shareholder in Some Group. However, when it comes to making decisions, we 100% debate
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah, we
right?
do. Yeah.
But we recognize that ultimately, for
Mm.
Code Untapped, if a decision needs to get made,
Yeah,
I
I
have to
will.
make it.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
Some Group,
Yeah.
irrespective of what my opinion is, if a decision gets made, you make it. But
Yes.
what we've ensured is that there's enough protections for each other, so no one gets messed around
Yeah,
or put into a
exactly.
position that I'm like, well, I'm not comfortable with this,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
we can trust each other to make the decisions that need to be made. And I
Yeah.
think that's a core aspect of our relationship, which is
Mm.
there's an ability to have open, honest, and hard
Yeah.
conversations,
Hard
which
talking.
we've
We have some
we've
hard
had to
talking.
have, right? We've had to have them, and
Yeah.
we've been able to have them.
Mm.
But there's also, whilst there's not a natural hierarchy, it's not like you've ever been my boss or I've
No.
been your boss. There's a level of respect for each other's core competencies and
For sure.
decision-making capability,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a real thing. There's a humility, and
Mm.
I know this sounds praising, and the rest of it's not supposed to be, but there's a humility which says, I can listen to you. You can tell me what I don't want to hear, and I can go from, okay, maybe I should do something slightly different, and you do exactly the same thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to, and I think that is, and that is effectively a mark of a good leader. I think actually being able to listen to listen not just to your co-founder but also to your colleagues as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly.
it's really important to take on that advice, because that's how you grow. And that thing about trust is that's like 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can reinforce that trust as well. I mean, like
Mm.
we've got contracts in place. Yeah.
Yeah,
In everything
exactly.
that we do, we've got contracts in place. In Code Untapped, we have a contract, it's, a shareholders agreement, and all of that sort of stuff. And we have the same in Some Group as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, as well as we're friends, we're business partners as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is important. This is sometimes the element that people forget as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to, nobody really wants to, bring in the lawyers or bring in the
No,
accountants,
never.
stuff like,
Right.
no one wants to do that.
Even though
Let's
it's
be
the
honest.
first thing you should do.
It is literally the first thing that you should do, really, is to bring
Yeah.
in the lawyers and the consultants, because basically they're there to make sure that, when things go pear-shaped, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a framework to
There's a
operate.
framework that everybody understands, and everybody
Exactly.
everybody knows what they're buying into. Yeah. And
100%.
and what they're gonna, so it's and again, when you take the time to get those things right, that also builds trust, and it also
Yeah.
continues the respect that you have for your co-founder as well. Yeah.
So, given our shortage, I don't think we've got a huge amount of time to talk about where can you find co-founders, but actually, I think that's less. This conversation has given me a light bulb moment. That actually, that where do you find them is far less important than the qualities you look for.
Yes,
right?
for sure.
Where you
Yeah.
can find them, you can find co-founders at work. You can find
Yeah.
co-founders in your family. You can find co-founders in your friendship group. You can find co-founders in a meetup group. You can find co-founders in a mentoring group. Wherever you can find them off the street or in an advert. You can do a post on LinkedIn for a co-founder. There are many, 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 many different ways you can find a co-founder. But I think it's those qualities that you look for that complement you and support you that are super, super important. And that trumps all of it, right? 100%. So that's been a real light bulb moment for me because I get asked this question all the time, all the time. So just to wrap up, it's really interesting because we've got a current poll running on our LinkedIn at the moment. And do check out our Code Untapped LinkedIn page where we have these polls running, and it gives you a chance to be a part of the conversation. But one of the questions we asked was, do you need a co-founder to successfully run a startup? And interestingly, 60% of people said yes, 40% said no. The thing that surprises me is that so many people said no. I actually think it's almost mandatory that you have a co-founder.
You definitely don't want to. Yeah, you definitely don't. No matter how hard you think you are. Yeah, that founder journey can break.
100%.
It can break you, and just having that
100%.
Yeah, just having that person to lean on as well and get through those hard times. And you'll need to get their energy. They'll need to get your energy, but again, as well as the fact that they have complementary skills to you as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. And we had another poll which we did, and think we're going to use this as the focus of our next conversation, which is, do you think it's a good idea to offshore your tech team? And this is a really interesting subject, right? Because 50% of people said yes, 50% said no. So, we can have some debates about this on the next conversation, because I've done both. Jason's in the process of doing it. We've worked with offshore teams in our professional roles. So we'll have a good chat about that.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for this week's Code Untapped Tech Talk. That's me, Ez, saying thank you very much and look forward to speaking to you next time. Jay, any words from you?
Carry on coding, guys, and we'll speak to you next time.
Fantastic. Take it easy.
Cheers.